This is my cubing guide, okay? Weapon, sub-weapon, emblem. That's where you get most of the damage. Then badge heart if you have it. If you don't have it, move on to the next one. Glove, crit damage. We're talking about like... This is like late game stuff though. Other than that, accessories, right? So this gives you a lot of damage. This is this is something that will give you a lot of stat more cheaper because there's not a lot of junk lines on these items. These have a little bit more junk lines. These have even more junk lines. So this is general order in which you want to cube things, so so that you can get max value out of your money. The other thing that's also taken into account here is how long do you keep the item, right? If you spend 10 bill on an item, but you're gonna replace it in a week, that's not a great investment because we can't recoup the cost in the same way that non-reboot could, where you could just sell it and recoup some of the cost, right? You're either stuck with the item or you hammer transfer it, but then usually you significantly lose some of the value that you invested in it, especially in early and in mid and late game, which is when you're asking these questions. How find an item if it has no pot? You can use e-pots or just find a rare. Okay, I see a lot of people in the early game struggling with like, where do I find potential scrolls? Where do I find potential scrolls? Half the time, it's easier to just find another item that actually has potential rather than try to get potential scroll for the item that you have. Also, these arrows are scuffed as fuck. I made this like 6 years ago. Well, 4 probably, but yeah. E-pot, epic, African American cubes to unique, African American cubes, or Native American cubes to legendary pot. This depends on which cube you want to use when you get to legendary. So if you're doing this on a glove because you want to get crit damage, maybe double line crit damage. If you want to use black cubes after legendary pot, you just go full black cubes basically. If you want to do it faster and you're making a fuck ton of money, you do black cubes. If you're trying to, if afterwards you're trying to use red cubes, then you just use red cubes because eventually you'll want to keep recubing and you don't want to get to legendary pot and be stuck with a bunch of black cubes because then it's very expensive to just roll those black cubes and then you're going to feel forced to use those black cubes on an epic item again to get to unique again. But once you're unique on an item, you're forcing yourself to have to use master craftsman cubes again, and you can't roll with occult cubes anymore, which is a cheap way of getting a bunch of extra stat for free, basically, early on when everything's epic. If you make something to unique, it feels good initially because it's a higher tier, but now you're fucked because now you have to start using Master Craftsman cubes, which are 7.5 mil each, while occult cubes are just like you can just make those like water, basically. So that's why you typically don't want to tier up too fast too early, and that's why the hat, the top and the bottom are down here, specifically the hat and the top, because they have a lot of junk lines. So typically you want to keep them unique for a long time because you can just reroll with Master Craftsman cubes while you're already rerolling everything in legendary with red or black cubes, typically with red cubes. Unless you already have something nice, right, that you might want to keep and you don't have endless amounts of money, or there's like a DMT with a limit cube sale, for example, one of those annoying things. Then you would just want to keep it unique because then you can get those Master Craftsman cubes, and then 7.5 mil isn't that much because you're comparing it to 12 or 22 mil per roll, right? Here, when you're in this situation, you're comparing 7.5 mil per roll with, I don't know, what is the value of an occult cube? Like 50k or something, right? So, yeah, that's basically what that is. Thanks, much for me to try. Also get mezzo on my rings during DMT. I don't have issues killing stuff, but I have issues getting loaded on the mushroom game rupees. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. If you're mainly trading your main character and you're not really struggling to kill monsters, get some mezzo obtain, maybe some drop rate on your accessories, and use that as your centerpiece to make sure that your average income when you're training just goes up, so you can save up more money, and then the next time a Star Force event comes around, you can go harder on those. It feels like a detour, but it's really not. It just gets you to the finish line faster. I spent a few e-pots trying to get a Tyrant Cape to Epic, but I couldn't trade it because it needed to be PSOC. Thank God for the Legion shot. The paint image was the first guide I ever saw from you. I loved it. I remember thinking like, it's so empty up here, and then I put like a lightning bolt there just to fill up the empty space. Looking back at this now, this is so scuffed. Like the Holy Grail, like legendary pot. And I was like, oh yeah, I should add that this reboot because otherwise other people are gonna look at this like weird. DMT means you have to get your Connor ring now? That'd be nice. Do you see my boomed 12-star penciler top? Wait, what? There's penciler tops now? I did not. explain how to read the tier up costs spreadsheet? Yeah, sure. Tier up costs spreadsheet. Neighborino. Howdy ho, neighborino. Sure. So if you go from rare to epic and use Master Craftsman cubes, it costs on average 67.5 mil. With red cubes on average 96, with black cubes on average 132 mil. Epic to unique with Master Craftsman cube on average 202.5, red 204, black 198. So basically these numbers are like very close. So it stands to believe that you spend the same amount of money to tier up. That does mean that you buy a different amount of cubes, right? Because the cubes are different prices, but the amount of money, so meso to upgrade value, is roughly the same. And when it comes to unique to legendary, you see 492, 484. That's roughly the same as well. So that's probably programmed to be roughly the same number, because if they're after this many tests, the numbers are this close. There's a high likelihood that those numbers are probably meant to be the same. Here, there's still a very big discrepancy though from rare to epic, but rare to epic probably has a lower sample size. 151, yeah, 67 only. Rare to rare, oh well, 330, epic, and 600. This is a decent amount actually. This is a very low amount. But those aren't in there, sorry. And this is a bigger amount. Yeah, so I feel like these numbers are pretty confident. Like sample size is probably big enough, but yeah, I'm no statistician, so. So this basically means that if you're going from rare to epic, it's best to use Master Craftsman cubes. It's just a cheaper pound for pound. If you're at epic, it doesn't really matter which cube you use. So if you have Master Craftsman lying around, you might as well try to use those if you're trying to get to unique. If you're trying to get there fast and in as little clicks as possible. So the added benefit of black is, since it's the same value cost, but the cubes inherently are more expensive, that means you need to use less cubes, which means less clicking, which means less reveal costs, and it's just the whole process is just faster. And since time is money to a certain extent in this game, using black cubes and getting all your tier ups faster means that you can get to making money faster, and you can recoup your money faster because you're spending less time clicking in town, right? So that's why typically people go for black cubes for like the mass tiering up. But like the increased chance of tiering up is accounted for in the cost of the cube compared to the red cube. Yeah, so if you're trying to tier a bunch of stuff up, you could just get a bunch of black cubes to tier everything up. But if you're just trying to tier one item up, I would usually get like a few black and then like maybe like 1 or 2 packs of black and then the rest red to try to force like the tier up in the black cube, and then re-roll with red cubes. Because when it comes to re-rolling, you want to have as many chances to re-roll as possible. Now black cubes are more expensive because you can keep your previous potential, and because you can have a higher chance of having prime lines on both the second and the third line compared to red cubes. But if you're not aiming for those that min-maxi output, like even if you get a prime line, doesn't mean it's the prime line you want, right? So you want to maximize on red cubes in the beginning so you have more attempts to roll, so that you have more chances of hitting 2 lines that are useful for you instead of just like 1 line of stat or something. Because it doesn't really pay off that much if you go for legendary, even on like a monocle or a tattoo, right? These are like the items that you want to get some pretty free stat on, like that should be 23% stat pretty early on. If you're throwing black cubes on, you get like 2 lines of MP or something that are both prime. It's like whoop-de-doo, like that doesn't help you, right? What helps you is getting a lot of attempts and getting a lot of rolls with red cubes so that you can get that maybe 20%, like, you know, maybe the second and the third line, maybe a line of all stat and a line of stat, something like that. And then you can keep that for a while, get your initial boost of strength, kill faster, make money back faster, wait for the next cube sale, and then unload and try to go for the 3 line, 2.5 line, whatever, what have you, right? To cash in on the upgrades that you made. And then the last thing we have on Star Force is basically just a general simulator, just to give you an idea of what it could roughly cost. So let's say that this is why, so let's look at this and put this to the test, right? Let's say that accessory, ring, pendant, right? Let's say that we're going to get accessory. All right, let's say we use red cubes. Let's say it's already legendary, and let's say it's 150. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Let's do 1,000 trials, and let's see how much it costs to get 24% or higher stat. This might take a little bit to. Oh no, it's not too bad. All right, so average cost 1.5 bill, median cost 1.2, anywhere between 12. Someone got in 12 and a half, which is impressive since red cubes are 12 mil. How did you get it in 12 and a half? Oh, 450K reveal costs. Smart. They included that. All right, my brain was working for a little bit there, but I figured it out. Chad. Don't worry. And then one person got a little bit unlucky and spent 13 and a half bill, which is, of course, way outlier here, right? This one unlucky sap. So one person did in 1 cube, one person did in 1,077 cubes. You see that the average is around 100. So 75% of people get it within 2 bill. So let's say like within 2.3 bill. So let's say yours like average, maybe a little bit above average. Let's say that this costs like 1.8 bill, right? So let's change the accessory to a shoe. So according to my theory, this should be higher, right? There you go. See? More chance. And so why is this higher? Because there are more lines of potential on these items that are undesirable. So there are more outcomes that will be completely useless to you. So on average, you'll have to use more cubes. Now, if we compare this, like I said, to the hat and the top, for example, those are even lower. We can double check that if that's true. So let's take the hat, for example. If you guys remember the number. Holy shit. Look at these numbers, guys. See how bad the hats are? See how bad this is? So now, here's my theory, but we can test this, right? My theory is that if you stay unique and you... Oh, it goes desired tier. Okay, so we can't test it with this, sadly. But yeah, that's basically cubing. So if you check exclamation mark cubing in the chat, you'll get these 3 links, and you can use those things.